and welcome back to the Tell All Bench. We have new devices. Round of applause. I don't know which one it is. We can't do all that yet. We're not that equipped.
All right. So one thing that you noticed the last time we said we have something to unveil. Well, here it is. So we're going to iterate through our learnings with the next level of our podcast.
Yes, one thing at a time.
Stuff. Yes, we've been iterating
And this is
through.
probably the best one. She handed it to me one by one, and I about cried. I was like, what? There's more gifts?
Okay. So hopefully we sound like a podcast
Professional.
Sexy voices, or I don't know how you describe that. It's definitely different.
No, it sounds like when you're listening to an audiobook. Doesn't it?
You know, that's funny because I don't think that I've ever listened to an audiobook.
Don't. It's not worth it. I would rather read. Like, genuinely. I can't pay attention.
All right. So bear with us, listeners, as we navigate this next journey. Court is all wired up, so her hands and fidgeting. Oh, Lord. Here we go. All right.
No, literally.
So today's topic is about age and the terms that we use, young and old. Yeah, see? Young and old. Because this has come up, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So who was more intimidating, young or old?
For me specific?
Yeah.
Oof, that's a hard one. I think professionally, old. Personally, maybe young. Only because I feel like you're trying to, if it's like personally, you're trying to like make friends with the person most likely. And I feel like that's more intimidating. But also like professionally, definitely old people. I don't like doing that. I don't like doing old people hair.
That intimidates you?
Most of the time, yeah.
And what about that?
Because I feel like they look at me and they're like, this girl's a child. What does she know?
Ah.
Like, I very much feel like it's a quote unquote ageist situation. Because it's been like literally said to me, like, how old are you? You look so young. You look younger than you do in the photo. It's like, meh. And I'm like, well, were you looking at the right person? Because I am the exact same.
So it doesn't sit well for you to be called or perceived as young.
Yeah, only because it then links to not being professional. And I don't like that. Or like not being experienced or able to do something.
So this is where we share, but on the opposite spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that being called old is derogatory,
Mm-hmm.
not welcome, just like being called young. So I think we share that. And it's interesting how the generations just throw them out at each other.
Mm-hmm.
You're young, you know, or that perception you're too young to know what you're doing, or the opposite. You're too old and outdated to know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Haha. Okay. So for me, what's more intimidating? It's interesting you delineated between personal or professional.
Yeah.
On the professional level, where I'm at, old doesn't intimidate me.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say young intimidates me. It does adjust a little bit how I communicate.
I was going to say, because I feel like you've already talked about that with your current role of like, well, I'm working with all these young people, Gen X or Gen Z and Gen Millennial.
And millennials.
I don't
yeah.
know what that is.
Yeah.
But of how you've had to whatever. And you're like, well, it's a good thing that I have you guys as like my sons and then me of like, I've realized how you guys are kind of thing, I guess, or like how we communicate versus like how somebody your age probably communicates.
Yeah, I think it's very different in the professional space, working across the generations and how they communicate.
Very true.
Very true. Okay. So we're going to go more on the old thing.
Oh, God.
Because you're always saying it to me, so we're just going to talk that shit right now. Okay, here we go. Who decides when someone is old?
I don't know.
Yeah. And the follow up to that is, when does Gen Z seem so eager to call Gen X old? Like early on, you called me old.
Like, damn, you're a grandma up in here. Shit. I think it's when like your kids become adults. Probably. Of like that doesn't it doesn't actually mean that you're like old, but your kids are old enough to like drink, do whatever they want. They could have their own house, they could have their own kids. So
Mhm.
then it's like you're getting ready or in that age group of like you could be a grandparent. So then grandparents are fucking old. Like that's just what we all think.
Mhm.
So I feel like that's where in my head where it comes. But also I do like a lot of not a lot, but a few children's hair and they always think I'm old.
Mhm.
So I feel like it's just like they view it as okay, you have a job. Like you're old. And then when I have a job and I'm an adult or whatever, I'm like, okay, well my mom's old because I'm old enough to like go buy a house or
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
So I feel like it kind of like switches at some point.
Yeah, I think it. Okay, that's good.
It's valid.
It's valid, and it's interesting that you're starting to, at your whole age of going to be 25, be deemed as old,
I know.
right?
Somebody said I'm gonna be mid-20s the other day, and I was like, no, don't say that to me. I was like, why am I like actually old? Because now I'm already getting to the space in my work where all these people are so much younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be like 80. I just
Mm-hmm.
can't.
I remember a distinct point in the corporate when I was onboarding someone who would have been my child's age,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, that was a little reality check because I could have let them struggle and suffer and endure, and I was like, I wouldn't do that to my kids. So I went beyond to kind of help them, right? So
Yeah.
it is interesting how your perspective of old and the next generation, how you kind of look at that.
Yeah.
So what does being old even mean in 2025?
I personally think it means having more life experience, having been through more, which is obviously not necessarily true. You've been through more years, but that doesn't mean you've been through more hardship or whatever. But, and I also think it means like you're more wise of like, you do have more lived experience in a lot of areas. So I feel like I always can learn from
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's old,
Yeah, you don't
like
have
quote
to.
unquote old.
You don't have to go through it like someone's gone through it ahead. So get in
Yeah.
and learn from that.
Yeah.
So is old? Is it about age? Is it about mindset? Or is it about being out of touch with trends? Right. So I look at it across that
Yeah.
perspective.
I definitely think it could be a little of everything because even I feel old sometimes because I don't know all of the newest trends because I'm not on TikTok very much, like at all. So it's like these girls will be talking to me and they're like, oh, did you see this TikTok? Do you know this trend? Or they'll say shit that I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, and I'm like, I'm not that old.
Mm-hmm.
But then now people are saying, like, I don't even know. They're like saying, oh, you were born in the 1900s, which I was not, obviously. But that's like a new running joke
That's a
of
new
like,
phrase that they're saying out there, huh?
yeah. And I get to say it still because obviously like 2000, but I'm like thinking about it and I'm like, so my best friend, my fiance, like my sister, one of them, two of them, whatever, are like all born in the 1900s. And I'm just like, what the fuck?
I can't believe that.
Or
I
like
had not heard
saying
that.
early 2000s music is the oldies.
Uh-huh.
I said, huh? I'm like, that
Mm-hmm.
shit's the good stuff. Like, what are you even talking about? I don't know.
See, that's funny because in looking
So,
at this stuff, it was like the Gen X was the cool independent. They could do it on their own. When did we become uncool? Right? It's like-
yesterday. I'm just kidding.
but the generation wants our stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's like all of a sudden we were cool, uncool, and then coming back into coolness because y'all are wanting to riff off of our trends that
Yeah.
were oldies but goodies, right?
I know.
So,
It's very interesting. I feel like it's like everybody is old in a sense. Because even when you're a kid, right? I'm just kind of going off the wall a little. But like you have a kid and you're like, oh my God, how old are you? Whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're getting old. Like they're 5
Mm-hmm.
freaking years old. And I'm like, because they're like excited to get old.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot.
It's always a reference of age. But then there's a
Always.
certain point that they start, you're 65 years young, right? There's some pendulum
Okay,
that
I
it
will say
switches
though,
over
that's
that.
like this like grossest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, come on. Like, I do not want to be, I'm 25 years young. Like, absolutely throw up in my mouth.
Okay, so here's the phases of life, right?
Sorry, I touched my ring.
Yeah, she can't be touching things. Okay.
I'm trying not to.
Like thinking about it in this way, the different phases. There's the infancy phase, the early childhood phase, 3 to 5 years of age, middlehood, 6 to 12 years of age, adolescence, early adult, and that's where we're at right now, right? You're in that early adult, 20 to 40 years of age.
Okay.
And then middle adult, and then late adulthood, right?
So wait,
The peak is early adulthood, between 20 and 40 years of age.
like you get the most new things or what?
That you're stopping, all this growth. You're at your peak physically. And 20 to 40 years of age, it's like you're figuring out relationships, homes, right?
And you haven't gotten saggy yet? No.
See how these comments come in? But for somebody who's gone past that, you look at that and go, you're just now starting to figure things out at 20 to 40 years of age.
Yeah.
So when you put it in that perspective, like fast track all through those childhood phases, at 20 to 40, you're just starting to figure it out. That's your peak physically. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I feel like that's why I keep saying, like, I feel like in my 30s, I'm going to freaking thrive. Because I just feel like by then I'll have more, like, I guess in this sense too, it's like 22, 40, like it's dead in the middle that I'm excited for, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
So then when you look at that and you go, would you want to go back to when you were 6 to 12 years of age, adolescence years? Would you want to go back to those phases of life?
Not permanently. I think I would like to go back for certain aspects of like, it's so much fucking easier. Like, I think I would not want to go back to school. No. At least for me, I was bullied. So I'm like, fuck that. But I would like to go back and like play Barbies with my sisters. Like, that's fun. Like, we don't do that anymore. Like, our idea of fun now would be like going to the bars or something, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
So
you know what I mean?
yeah. I guess where I was going with that is at my age, you look back on all of those and you're like, I wouldn't want to relive those anymore. I'm through that.
But also, like, wouldn't you want to go back for like a day to any age?
Well, I think those are just, when you ask that, you're going back to a specific memory type thing, right? But I'm going back to the living through those phases again.
Oh.
I'm
no.
like, no, past
Because
that.
I definitely don't want to be a teenager again. Absolutely the hell not.
And so when you progress through, the early adulthood, 2040, I feel like I said, you're just figuring out what and who you are and have the means if you're fortunate enough to do that. And then when you go into the middle adulthood range, which is 41 to 65, which is me, and you're calling old.
Well, I was going to say, do you actually consider yourself old? Because I do feel like y'all never consider yourselves old.
No.
But then it's also, who do you consider old?
That's why it goes back to like, how do you define old, right? Because when you talk to someone who is what we would consider by age old, they don't feel old. I mean, even I remember my mom when she later in life, she felt like in her heart she had the energy and the thought process of a young, but her body wouldn't allow her to move, right? So it's that, is it age? Is it mindset? Is it trends? How do we define you're old? But there's both good and bad with that. As you're past the peak, the body starts to, look, we're all aging.
Yeah.
It's no lie when they say, 30 years old, it's all downhill from here. They probably say that at 30, 40, 50, right?
No, yeah, they say that at
But there's a
everything.
reason, right, that 20 to 40, you're at the peak of everything, right?
Am I the first person that ever called you old?
Probably. Yeah.
Wait, now I feel like a bitch.
Yeah, you were a bitch. I'm just kidding. No,
Am
I
I
remember.
really though?
Yeah. Yeah. I was always like I would be 35 going into a bar and I got carded and I'm like, haha, that's funny. And they were
Mm.
like, no, thought you were. I've always been deemed at least 10 years younger than what my biological age is.
So then, do you like? Do anyone else other than me consider you old? And when did I say it? Like for the first time? Because clearly you remember.
Oh, I remembered it.
Because I don't.
I think
I think I was just saying it as a joke.
I
Probably.
think the giveaway was I needed my glasses. That was where you zeroed in. And I'm like, yep, there was a definitive, age where I then needed glasses, right? And because of needing glasses, it was deemed you're old. And I think we can get overly sensitive about it.
Yeah.
Just like the younger can be sensitive about, like, you're too young to know how to do this. Or what are those things on Instagram where I said, you're just a little baby, right?
Yeah.
Like if I were to project that back to you as a 20-something, right? Like, you're just a little baby, you would be offended with that. So when is it okay, to say you're old? I feel like it's what do they call it? Self-deprecating humor. Like if I call
Yeah.
myself old.
Yeah.
And I actually tried that out a couple times and I didn't like how it fit. I'm like, no, I'm not putting that label on me of being old.
See, I feel like my humor is self-deprecating a lot. So that's probably also part. Also, my humor is calling people old. Like, I'm not, like, I'm just like a brutal sense of humor type person, I feel. Because I've already called Brett old. I'm like, ew, you old man. Like, ooh, 1900s? Are you kidding?
See,
But like, it's not like I'm actually feeling like, oh my God, you're going to die old. You know?
Yeah, I think it's when I look back on it, your generation is much quicker to throw that out there than what I would have done at that same time period. I just wonder, like, why is old and young so on the forefront nowadays? It wasn't back in the day. It didn't even cross my mind to call somebody you're old. You're old as shit. It didn't even cross my mind.
So do you feel like my and Brett's and whatever generation, like Gen Z, considers you old? Like as a spectrum of people. Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, and I kind of think they do. I can see it in the corporate space, and I've had to catch myself as well when I can sit back and go, there's this new generation's X, the Z and Y beneath the X, and there's less boomers, right? So I can sit back and go, that's kind of some tradition. I like to label it, and you shouldn't, because when you label it, you indicate that's some traditional, dare I say, old way of thinking, right? But it doesn't.
I feel like too, it could be that you're realizing that you're at the top of the food chain at this point, especially at work. Like if there's nobody older than you, let's say,
Right.
then it's like, well, shit, I am old because I am the top that there even is at this company. You know what I mean? Like age-wise?
Well, yeah, you're on to something, meeting the number of generations in the workforce.
Yeah.
There's
more
3.
under than
yeah,
you,
there's
than
more under.
above,
Yes.
right.
And I think that's, so if you were to ask me, what moment did I realize that I was officially old, it would be more recently. That somehow I came to the thing of, I don't think it's because of the language. There's more of them.
Yeah.
All of a sudden that kind of came into light overnight.
Yeah, but like, when's the distinct moment, or it's just like, because you clearly had a dead realization at some point of like, what the like.
I can tell you, I think it was millennials that have kids and their kids. So they're the ones who are coming into your salon and calling you old.
Yeah.
They're calling their millennial parents old.
Yeah.
And now that millennial age is calling themselves old, and I'm sitting at X.
I know, right? I mean, seriously though, because technically, like, if I followed like a lot of Gen X's patterns, I would have kids already.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Yeah.
So then that would be that Gen Zs are already having kids at a normal rate. But still in my head, if you have kids right now, and this is no shade to anyone, like we're all on different life paths, and I've realized that. But I'm just like, that would be crazy. If like all of us just had children on purpose, like it wasn't an accident. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So this old and young thing, it is the labeling, when you label, you negate.
Yeah.
Because it goes both ways. So both of us feel that. Don't call me young, don't call me old.
Yeah.
Right? If you could give one piece of advice to your future 50-year-old self.
Oh gosh.
You are 25 this year.
I know.
I'm
halfway there.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
If you could give advice for your future 50-year-old self, what would it be?
Well, then I'm going to throw that question back at you in a second because I'm genuinely curious. I feel like I don't know if I have like a distinct like a phrase at the ready or anything, but I feel like what I see in 50-year-olds that I don't love is staying stuck in a mindset. I feel like I would tell myself to listen to the younger generations, to listen to my children and like what they're going through, or like their way of doing said job, or like what they're going through with school, because I'm sure by the time I have kids and I'm 50 years old, the college scene's going to be very different than it is now. So I feel like there's to keep learning and growing and like not to get stuck in my old ways, because I'm going to be that in 25 years. But I want to know what you would tell yourself at whatever half your age is, 26, 27. 27 will be half your age, won't it? What's the math?
So do you want me to go forward to be able to say, what would I tell my 85-year-old future self?
No. What would you have told your like 20-something-year-old self?
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah, like what would your advice have been if you could look back and like give yourself that?
That's so hard because at that age, you're so still growing, right? You're coming up on that peak. And by growth, I mean you're in consumerism. You're in the purchase, in the keep up the Joneses, the trends. It's buy, accumulate. And I get that. That's what's a beauty about our different phases. But the rat race that you were doing at 25, 26, and when you have kids, you're throwing yourself into everything, get them exposed into everything. You're running around crazy like.
Yeah.
And I would be like, that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's how they feel that matters. So choose less and choose quality.
Yeah.
I actually, the other day, was swimming. I swim. And there was a family there swimming. Came out in the parking lot, and I'm just walking towards my car. Well, the little girl must have done something that irritated mom, must have hit her accidentally. Mom lost her, you know what.
Yeah.
Turns out I'm parked right next to them. And I hear this whole thing going down. Dad's in the car in the passenger seat, hollering, leaning back. I'm literally right next to them. Could have just gotten in my car. Probably should have. I stood there for a little bit like, don't say anything. You're going to get yourself in trouble. But I wanted the point made that I'm here. I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
You all
like you have an audience.
Yeah, you all just spent an hour doing a family fun event.
Yeah.
And this is how you're going to end it?
Yeah.
So they would have been literally half my age. I would have said, don't lose perspective on what matters.
Yeah.
It's not hurrying to get home for the next event.
Yeah.
Be present. Drop your stuff and play with the kids. And stop running like a crazy person with your hair on fire to the next event.
Yeah. And I feel like I need to hear that right now. Like I had therapy earlier this morning and I was talking about that. I was like, I feel like I'm so like get everything done all at once. I'm not taking time to like, that's why I said I need to eat better, because I'm not taking time to nurture myself and like realize how my body feels and like the space I'm in and whatever. So I feel like it goes off of what you're saying. Is like I've literally been like dealing with that currently.
Yeah, I don't think you can introduce that at a young enough age.
I don't think so.
We're so busy introducing the kids to piano and sports and soccer and baseball and whatnot. If we could improve things, it would be teaching them how to be mindful and aware.
I always say, I feel like we need more mental things to be taught. Like, yeah, like be aware of how you feel, how your brain health is, like whatever. Because it, like, stress is one of the things that makes you die faster.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like personally, I am in a current state of stress all the fucking time. And that's something that I have to deal with. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't seek out therapy for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise I would be that 19-year-old girl at heart still, which is fine. But I want the emotional maturity of somebody of my age.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we don't teach that in schools at all. We try to teach. We talked about this on one podcast, but I feel like we're just teaching things. And yes, they're necessary, but I feel like there's a way to save a little bit of time for the mental capacity as well as the physical, as well as whatever else.
Yeah, so that kind of encapsulates the whole conversation about old and young and how do you define old? Is it the physicality? Is it the mindset?
Yeah.
Is it the trends, right?
I feel like it's a little of everything, seriously.
But physically, you're going to get older and you're going to get older quicker if you're not taking care of yourself.
Yep.
And we own our definition of our inner essence, right? Not someone putting the label on you, you're old or you're just a little baby, right?
Yeah.
Let's take the goodness out of it.
Like what I was going to say too is I think part of it is like instead of all of us like jumping to you're old, I'm young, you're old, this person's a baby, who cares, whatever. Like I feel like we need to also like pay attention to where they are right now and allow them to show up and prove themselves one way or the other. Like if I, in my professional sense, if I have you sit down, I absolutely destroy your appearance, then yeah, you could be like, maybe it's because she's young. Like blame it on that if you want to, whatever. But don't sit in my chair and be like, oh God, can you even do this? I'm like, you didn't give me the fucking chance and now I want to fry your hair off.
Right.
I would never do that. But I'm just saying, like also in yours, like I hope people are coming to you and being like, what can you teach me?
Mm-hmm.
Not, well, the fucking old lady, she's going to be here for another year and then she's going to retire anyways. You know?
Yeah. Because
I feel like we need to like shut that shit down.
We need to be
here.
more connected and embracing on both because
On all sides.
I'm going to say that the younger can learn from my lived experience.
Yeah.
My lived experience has to be willing to want to share that, right?
And your lived experience needs to be able to keep learning
Mm-hmm.
and not only show face and only show up as what you have learned, but continue that knowledge. Because then you just have more to share.
So then how do
know?
you balance, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because if I talk to some of my Gen X friends, some of them know what a podcast is. Some of them are...
Don't tell me some of them don't know.
Some of them, you know, like what is Instagram? I'm not on that, you know, blah, blah, blah.
That's fair.
And you're kind of like, you gotta stay relevant to at least know it a little bit. Doesn't mean you have to be active on it. Like I remember, you know, I think we talked about this, like Snapchat when that first came out. I'm like, what's that? Snapchat. We're talking right now, right? There can be too many of them
many things,
where you're just like, I don't need to chase for the sake of chasing. But I do think you need to stay aware and open to, you know, things like, you know, having an 85-year-old father-in-law that now happily maneuvers his iPad and has a smartwatch and a smartphone who was going to be resistant to it all. Thank God he has all that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there are foundational things that you just...
You need to get behind, baby.
You need to, in order to keep going and do things, you have to stay relevant with it. Right?
And I also think it's just part of evolving. Like the way electronics and stuff, like sometimes I'm like, I can't keep up. But still, like the world is going to keep going. So it's either you stick with it or at least try.
Mm-hmm.
or you're going to be left behind and people aren't going to want to associate, or people are going to be like, well, you're just old and you're halfway out the door anyways.
Yeah, you may not.
You know?
You may not need to start a podcast and go through all
No,
this.
definitely not. But you can at least like know how to call somebody on a cell phone instead of just having a landline that nobody ever uses.
Right.
I think I've heard y'all's ring one time, and I'm like, why the fuck do you have that thing?
That's probably a girl math conversation that might be coming up, but yeah. So this was a fascinating conversation because
I felt like it was a good conversation. I feel good.
I think we need to do more celebrating. You know, that whole thing about a happy birthday is just another trip around the sun.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. I put more miles around that sun and, kind of honor that and go, yeah, that it's a great thing, not a derogatory thing. And the younger, it's like, hey, who wouldn't want the energy and all that of someone young? So celebrate that. Work together, I feel, than
and
apart.
Stop being envious of the other person, I feel. Like, we do need to, like, live in the moment more, like you were saying. Like, I can be like, I'm so, like, I wish I was where you were or whatever, but I'm like, I'm also going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you already got to experience being 25, and now you get to share that experience. So it's like, I feel like we just need to be happy where we are, live in the moment, and also cheer each other on.
There you go. Cheer each other on, right? Yeah. Like, don't pretend you hold all the answers because no one does.
No.
But talking about this, it kind of makes me like, we have no visibility into who our audience is. We have these, followers, and I'm like, really wish I could find out. Are they Xers? Are they all Z?
I think there is a way to see on YouTube, potentially. But they would have had to log their real age, obviously.
Yeah. I would love to know that, to be able to go, what are y'all wanting to know? And is it pointless for Xers? Like, come on, Xers. Come on. All generations. Like, we got some shit to talk about.
I know. I feel like I could talk. Like, I'm a yapper, y'all. Like, that's also coming in another episode. But I'm like, I could talk for forever. And I feel like I always am wanting to hear and listen. But also voice my opinions and, like, my experience, even if it's only 25 years.
I often have another quote that you love, but I reserve the right to get smarter.
Amen, sister.
And it has nothing to do with age. So,
nope.
Well, there we have it. Do you have any closing thoughts on our episode, my dear?
If you don't go, you won't know. See, I can whisper now and y'all can hear me still. So,
all righty. Well,
okay, we see you soon.
All right. And that's a wrap.